really 4 or 5 guys in with a chance to win this race today at the front end.
Well, you mentioned Coulthard there. He really is the one big name that's not at the party this weekend in terms of the front of the grid. He's 9th today, and after that win in Australia in the first Grand Prix and 2nd on the grid in Brazil in round 3, it's been a bit of a slide for Coulthard, certainly in qualifying terms, and that really has compromised him in terms of the championship. He's 30 points now away from the championship battle as Räikkönen takes us off from his first ever pole position on the formation lap here. Michael Schumacher, nice on board from him. We've had terrific onboard cameras, Martin, all weekend from here in the Nürburgring. Let's hope that continues today during the Grand Prix. This is one of 2 hairpins then on this new revised Nürburgring circuit, revised last season. This is the 2nd time we've run on it. The one major change to the circuit this year is to the tight chicane, which has been adapted. The curbs have been altered, as you'll see shortly. It's not a terribly high average speed circuit, this, around about 125 miles an hour average speed, just a whisker over 3 miles long, and they'll be going around here 60 times this afternoon. And when we talked about the strategy, 2 or 3 laps perhaps difference between the front runners. That means we expect them to come in for their first stop any time between around about lap 17 to lap 20.
Yes, easy to make a mistake around here. You have to be focused all the way through the Grand Prix, as you do all Grand Prix, but it's a busy racetrack. It's quite kind to you in many respects, reasonable level of grip, or certainly a consistent level of grip. It's not bumpy, the curbs are not too high, and often the camber, the tarmac, leans into the corner, sweeps into the corner with you. But some of the braking areas here are absolutely critical, none more so than down into turn 1, where we've seen, as their tyres begin to wear, we'll often see cars going in there too deep and locking their brakes, making mistakes onto the outside of the racetrack. So you do have to stay particularly alert around here.
Lovely overhead shot then as the cars come through the final part of the lap. That's Nick Heidfeld, as I say, is going to be starting from the pit lane under the new regulations of the Parc Fermé. The cars were put there after qualifying last night. No work allowed to be taken place on the cars without the authority of the FIA, and an engine change is one of the things that will mean you have to start from the pit lane. No doubt Heidfeld's team will have been thinking about fueling that car, making it heavy. Traditionally the strategy around here has been to go for a one-stopper, a few two-stoppers last year, but no doubt today amongst the front runners, two-stop strategy. Tyre wear, as Martin was saying on the grid walk, absolutely critical today. Whichever of the 2 companies in Formula One has the more consistent tyre certainly will be offering their team the greatest chance of victory.
I think it is tyre wear, but it's more than that. I think it's the degradation of the tyre as well. They may have some meat left on it, but if it's graining, or as we're suspecting may happen on the Ferraris, blistering, where you get a big heat build-up underneath the surface of the tyre, and then it sort of bursts open into a blister, and that gives you, I mean, the contact patch is not that big, even for Formula One, and suddenly with blisters you lose a huge amount of grip, and you get a lot of vibration coming through the car too. The weather's not what they said it was going to be. It's supposed to be 30+ degrees ambient, hasn't happened. The sun's out at the moment, and that shot of the clouds looked a little bit ominous. And so often here over the years, decades, James, we've seen rain coasting in, haven't we? We're up in the Eiffel Mountains, I suppose you call them. They're sort of big hills, really, not really a mountain range, is it? But you do tend to get some specific regional weather here.
Well, let's hope we don't get any of that in the next hour and a half or so of sporting action here from the Nürburgring. Another European Grand Prix ready to get underway any moment now. When the 5 lights go out, we'll be racing. Turn up the volume button and enjoy the sound. Here we go. Away they go then. Great start for Räikkönen. Schumacher slow away. Ralf Schumacher is attacking him. Down the outside, he's in front. Ralf Schumacher's got his brother, and they said he couldn't pass him. Well, already in this Grand Prix, he's proved them wrong. Barrichello goes wide on the outside. One of the 2 Renaults has done very well off the start line. He's side by side with Montoya, and a Jag looks like it's blown up. Or so no, it's tyre smoke, I think. Mark Webber tyre smoke. But what a move there by Ralf Schumacher off the start line.
Yes, indeed, and everybody got away particularly well on the left hand, the normal race line, as it were, of the grid. 2 Renaults are line astern, so one of them's had a reasonable start, and Räikkönen leads comfortably then from Ralf Schumacher. Michael Schumacher, Barrichello up to 4th, and Montoya then slipping back to 5th. Then it's truly Alonso, Panis, Coulthard, D'Amata is 10th.
You're absolutely right, Martin. It was the outside lane of the track, the one where the cars go down, where the most rubber is, that seems to have had a massive benefit to those that were starting on it. Michael Schumacher's lost out, Barrichello has gained, Montoya lost out. It was very consistent off the start line, and all of that is terrific news, not just for Kimi Räikkönen, but also for Ralf Schumacher. He's put one bogey behind him, then he's passed his brother on the racetrack.
Yeah, been a bit of talk about that, hasn't there, this weekend, but a great run from him down to the first corner. Räikkönen stretching that lead nicely, and he will be delighted to see a Williams in his mirrors rather than a Ferrari. Barrichello will be pleased with fourth. There's the two Renaults, Panis, Coulthard, D'Amata, Button, Webber, Furman. Was that Furman I saw there? Yes, up to P13. He's passed his teammate Fisichella somewhere.
He's 3 places ahead of Fisichella on the grid. This is one of the strongest weekends so far for Ralf Furman. He was very good in qualifying yesterday, just 0.3 of a second slower than Fisichella, which for a rookie on his first visit to the circuit, I think everyone will agree, is a fine effort, and he's now 3 places ahead of him. So that's a good job. Räikkönen leading, Ralf Schumacher just over a second behind him. Michael Schumacher's third, Barrichello fourth, Montoya in fifth, Trulli sixth, seventh is Alonso, eighth, and the last of the points paying positions at the moment is the Toyota of Olivier Panis. David Coulthard is still where he started. There he is in 9th place. D'Amata in the second Toyota just behind him, and Jenson Button is 11th. The rest of the Brits, Wilson, has he had his customary great start? No, he hasn't actually. He is down in 18th place, and we mentioned Furman, he's 13th.
Yes, at least Wilson's ahead of Villeneuve, though. I don't know what happened to Jacques on the first lap, but Jacques Villeneuve down in 19th. Heidfeld starting from the pit lane is 20th. Fisichella, the big loser though on the start, lost 3 places. Here is, as it looks, from Michael Schumacher. He started on the front row of the grid in second, but look, Ralf easily driving past him down to that first corner. Then it's very tight behind. Montoya, the two Renaults, Panis screaming down the outside in the Toyota, and that worked very well for him. And the Jaguar was smoking, James. The Jaguar of Webber was smoking, probably just a little overfill or pressurization in the engine there. Ralf so nearly locking up and going into the back of Kimi Räikkönen there. Schumacher, Michael having to settle for third then on the opening lap, and that's where he remains as they enter lap 3.
And that expression on the face of technical director Ross Brawn there on your screens a moment ago is pretty much the expression he's had all weekend. Inscrutable. You wouldn't want to play poker against Ross Brawn. You've no idea what he's really thinking. The one little clue, though, he has given us this season is when his car in Michael Schumacher's hands has qualified well, and it's been carrying a lot of fuel. He has tended to be quite smiley in the reaction shots during qualifying. There was no smile yesterday. It was that inscrutable look. They are really up against it here at the Nürburgring. It's nothing to choose between the top 3, 4, 5 cars, as you can see.
Lead was 1.8 seconds as they went over the line. Further 6/10 back then. Ralf Schumacher second, Michael Schumacher third, 6/10 behind. Barrichello 1.6 behind his teammate. So just spreading out a little bit at the moment. The closest action is truly very close to the back of 5th place man Montoya. On board with the Renault then, heading up there towards the RTL curve, just over the top of that crest. Easy to see when there's cars in front of you. Get a better clue of where the turn-in is. And the Renault's looking strong at this stage too. Going well. They've not really shone this weekend, James, have they, in terms of raw pace, Renault, but looking pretty happy at this time. And Räikkönen stretching that lead. Michael Schumacher keeping his brother honest, and Barrichello right with them too.
Yes, you talk about the Renault team. I think they were a little bit mystified. Jarno Trulli yesterday after qualifying in his press briefing was saying that when they came here this weekend they expected to be very competitive, but Friday really was a bit of a washout for them in every sense of the word. And it was something of a surprise to Trulli that he was able to get himself up into 6th place onto the grid after the poor start that they made to the weekend. It should have been a circuit that suited their car, but they were a second off the pace of Ferrari, Williams and McLaren through the early part of the weekend. Trulli managed to reduce that to half a second yesterday in qualifying. Huge bite of handling difficulty there.
Yeah, it's got out of shape on under braking. Did he get past in that move? Panis was 2.4 down, so no, he would not have done. But yeah, fighting the car. Remember, that Renault's on the softer tyres, and we're wondering if that's really the optimum tyre to be on this afternoon.
So let's just talk a little bit then, Martin, about the challenge of Kimi Räikkönen. Obviously in Canada he had a pretty terrible time. He binned it in qualifying, started from the pit lane, managed to fight his way up through the field. But Ron Dennis talked yesterday of a growing maturity with Kimi Räikkönen, and he felt that the qualifying performance yesterday was a good example of it. He's out front now in the Grand Prix, looking for his second victory of the season, one which will get him back on terms with Michael Schumacher in the championship. Just tell us a bit about the pressure on his shoulders.
Well, he doesn't appear to even notice it, does he? I mean, he delivered up yesterday under the most extreme of pressure circumstances I can imagine, with a one-lap effort and a great expectation on you. Now he's just pulling away from this lot. He's 2.6 seconds up, lapping 9/10 of a second faster, and look at the lead he's got. He just seems to be totally comfortable with himself and the car, and the other older hands don't affect him. And that's a sign of a true champion, no doubt about it.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Michael Schumacher seems to be pretty close up behind his brother Ralph. And as he was in Montreal 2 weeks ago, first 20 laps of that Grand Prix, he couldn't find a way past the Williams BMW. They've certainly made some great improvements to this Williams package. Sam Michael, the team's coordinating engineer, talked over the weekend about them finding about a second, he believes, since the start of the season. But it was definitely there to find. The car was not competitive in the early part of the season. A lot of it's been on the aerodynamic side. There was nothing wrong with the engine. It was really in the chassis that they found the performance. Mechanical grip, aerodynamics, a second has been found in half a season by Williams, and they really are contenders now for the second half of this championship if the last couple of races are anything to go by.
Räikkönen's lead up to 3.9 seconds now. He was a second two faster than anybody else. Shows you what a problem qualifying gives you. Coulthard down in 9th, tucked up behind Panis, lapping 2 seconds away from the ultimate pace. He's already a dozen seconds behind at the end of lap 4, and that, unfortunately, is what a bad qualifying will cost you down there. The true pace of the car can't be shown when you're in traffic, and Räikkönen, certainly with clear air in front of him, no pressure, doesn't have to get defensive anywhere on the racetrack, as Ralf Schumacher will now have to start thinking about, as clearly the Ferraris are faster at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Well, they just went flatting through that chicane. I was talking about some changes, and one of the most controversial has been to that chicane. Those bollards have taken several front wings off during the course of this weekend. Jenson Button managed to remove 3 on his BAR during the course of Friday alone. Barrichello's been through there and knocked a wing off, so has Heidfeld. And look at those Renaults, they really are struggling to get into that hairpin, aren't they?
They are indeed, and you just saw the Panis Coulthard fight behind them. Villeneuve's down in 19th and staying pretty much at the tail end. We'll just watch our way through this replay of the start. Look at that, textbook start from Räikkönen. Got all the space he wants, from brake and turn in where he wants. And the Renaults behind him and Montoya supremely close. 2 Ferraris side by side. Barrichello got a great start too, then had to yield in turn 2 there. But one more time then from Michael Schumacher. You'll see the Williams of Ralf Schumacher flash past the left-hand side. The acceleration of these cars is so amazing from a standing start, but if you really hook it up nicely and the electronics are working well and you've got grip on your side of the track, you can easily make 20-30 metres on another car. There then is the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Ted, what can you tell us about Villeneuve?
Well, I've been down to the BAR garage trying to find out what happened with that launch control. Believe it or not, Jacques and his engineer Jock Clear have not had a single conversation about it on the radio. Now, to me, that says 2 things, really, one of 2 things. Either Jacques messed up on the sequence himself, and he's too embarrassed about it, which I don't think is very likely, he's been at it a while enough, or the car messed up itself, and Villeneuve's too furious to say anything about it.
Or alternatively, the radio's not working.
It could be that indeed, James, but remember, BAR have had problems with the launch control, one of the myriad problems Villeneuve's had this season, so I wouldn't put it past that system failing again.
Well, clearly then we didn't see it at the tail end, but Villeneuve not getting away well, and that's why he's down in 19th and not moving forward. And he's got Heidfeld, who started from the pit lane, just now just 0.3 of a second behind him. Villeneuve starting 17th anyway, but really dismal weekend for Jacques Villeneuve. Sorry to have to say that, but it's working out that way for him. But Räikkönen is just in a class of his own up the front there.
Winner in Malaysia round 2 of the World Championship. A great start to the season for the McLaren team as we look back from the BMW Williams team. That's the crew, all primed, alert and ready to go. This is lap 7 of 60. We're expecting the front runners in any time between laps 17 and 20, as we said. And a suspicion also that Kimi Räikkönen, his pace at the moment would not suggest it, but certainly yesterday Ron Dennis saying he didn't think that any of the other front runners were carrying more fuel than Kimi was. And if those words are proved to be correct, it really is a remarkable early stint here from Kimi Räikkönen. The Williams and the Ferrari cannot live with him. There's David Coulthard there, you can see. Not exactly menacing the back of the Toyota at the moment. Coulthard lapping in the mid to high 1:34s, around about a second off the pace of his teammate at the front.
And everybody else is too, it has to be said. And on this lap, he's just done a 33.3, Kimi Räikkönen, for a new fastest lap of the race so far. And he's going to be another half second ahead then. So they're beginning to get into the zone, and they know where the track is now. There has been other racing out there, a lot of other racing, Formula 3000, Formula BMW, the Porsche Super Cup, since they qualified yesterday afternoon. So it's now, of course, they don't run another hot lap between qualifying and the race itself. And they're now beginning to find out where the grip is, how much the track has changed with the wind direction, the ambient and the grip level after so many other racing cars have been pounding round. The lead 5.8 seconds now, and that's what it looks like in track terms.
Yep, Räikkönen over Ralf Schumacher. There he is coming down the hill then. And Ralf Schumacher 5.8 behind as we look at the scrap between Villeneuve and Verstappen. That's the battle for 17th place on the grid. Heidfeld just behind them in the Sauber, having started from the pit lane, and Villeneuve really monstering the back of Verstappen's car. You'd expect that car to have a great deal more speed, straight line and corner. They're going around the outside then, Villeneuve. He's giving the inside for the next corner. Hasn't quite worked out though.
It's such a high-speed corner. There's 105 through that left-hander, so there's not really a braking zone as such. Jenson Button in the sister BAR up to 11th. So solid, if unspectacular performance in the midfield there from Button at the moment. Furman remains 13th. Wilson has dropped down to 20th, unfortunately. He's obviously had a little problem in there somewhere because he was running ahead of Verstappen.
He was. You just saw him there at the back of your frame. Villeneuve having a little bit of a look then into the left-hander. Can't make it stick. Down through the bit curve then, over 100 miles an hour, onto the back straight.
Surely Jacques can do it now. Get in the slipstream. There is a big stop at the end of this. An equal level of grip from side to side on the track. He now has the right position and he should easily make that move. Villeneuve will now be released and can get underway. But that was really his easiest and best chance, and he took it nicely.
So Villeneuve goes up into 17th place. Verstappen drops to 18th. And Villeneuve starts to drive away a little bit. Jos the boss. Nice to see him battling now. Wilson, you just saw at the top of your screens. So Räikkönen leading on lap 9. Heidfeld having a bit of a go side by side with Verstappen. And he makes it stick. That's where Heidfeld went off in qualifying. Verstappen's making it hard for him, though. A nice bit of overtaking. 2 passes then in the sequence of a few corners. And Villeneuve's binned it. He's managed to control it, though. Oh, we had a huge aquaplane in Friday qualifying. Went straight on at the hairpin. Not at all his fault. On a very, very wet track, he was on the wrong tyres. But there, he just appeared to drop it.
Well, he was pushing hard, wasn't he? He finally cleared the Minardi. He's got some track in front of him, just wanted to get on with it. There was a gap of some 11 seconds to the main midfield pack. And there, got some understeer in turn 2. Managed to keep it all together. Bits and pieces of carbon fibre coming off from underneath the front wing and underneath the strakes that run underneath the car. So he will not be handling as well as he was. And he's got to do it all over again, except now it's 2 Minardis and a Sauber.
Well, that should be an entertaining afternoon for him. At the moment, it's plain sailing for Kimi Räikkönen, but a long, long way to go yet in this Grand Prix. 7 of 60 here at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. It's a fantastic scrap for last place in the Grand Prix. Something you don't see very often. Jacques Villeneuve, who certainly doesn't appear at the back all that often, is trying to pass Justin Wilson in the Minardi in front. This is Olivier Panis in the Toyota. Was running in 7th place, but he's not anymore. Look at that, he's dropped it at the first corner. Wheels furiously spinning. Another example, they are.
What I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Look at the tyre wear on the inside of his right front. You run about 3 degrees of camber. The top of the tyre leans in, so you always wear the inside out first. That's also where the braking patches, particularly in the second half of the braking zone, as the downforce bleeds off and the car comes up, the springs are less compressed, the tyre's getting a little bit worn, and suddenly you snatch a brake. Where you were braking before, exactly the same place you braked in the previous 10 laps, and it was fine. All of a sudden, the wheels lock and you go way too deep into the corner. 60% of your braking is through your front tyres. If one of those locks up, you've lost best part of 30% of your braking capacity. But that did release David Coulthard then up into 8th. Meanwhile, Furman has pitted at the end of his lap 10 and is down, has moved well down the field, so clearly 3 stopping were the Jordans, and Fisichella in the pits now again for quite an early scheduled stop, and he looks like he's 3 stopping too.
Yeah, that's if those are scheduled stops, and it certainly looks that way, that's disappointing for the Jordan team. There is Ralph Furman, who was anyway in front of Fisichella on the racetrack, but this is only lap 12, and to bring your cars in on laps 11 and 12 means you were running pretty light fuel during qualifying. So I think the Jordans, having qualified in 13th and 14th places, be a bit disappointed with their performance this weekend. That's not quick, is it?
No, it's not. And they flattered to deceive a bit in qualifying then in that respect. Interestingly though, James, this last couple of laps, they've normalised Räikkönen's pace. Everybody's now, Räikkönen's just done a 32.9, the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. And the other players are in the 33, low 33. So Räikkönen's just stretched the lead one more time to 7.3. But the 2 previous laps, they pegged him, and the Grand Prix suddenly stabilised for the first time. Räikkönen, they stopped him pulling away from them.
Well, maybe he was either taking a breather or giving the tyres a bit of a breather, but his pace the same for those 2 laps as Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher behind him. Give you an idea of the overall picture then of this Grand Prix. From the start, Kimi Räikkönen taking the lead, Ralf Schumacher jumping Michael Schumacher. He is 7.3 seconds behind race leader Räikkönen, as Villeneuve thinks about an attack on Wilson here.
We're going to see a pass here, unless Wilson covers the inside line, which he hasn't done. He's left Jacques exactly the line he needed. And Jacques has been getting too feisty in the 2 corners before that. There's no point, you'll never get through in those. But if you just come out of the bit curve well, he's got the straight line speed and the better downforce and braking capacity. And, well, he's pulled the same manoeuvre now on both Minardis. Unfortunately, with that spin, he's got to do it all over again on Verstappen now.
Yeah, I think that was actually Verstappen. Let me just see. Yeah, that was Verstappen. The 2 Minardis have switched order. Corrections, apologies for that. Villeneuve is now behind Justin Wilson. It was Jos Verstappen who he just passed for the 2nd time in this Grand Prix. Here's your race leader then, 7.3 seconds clear of Ralf Schumacher in 2nd. Michael Schumacher just right with his brother, is 2nd behind at the moment on lap 13. Barrichello, he's just under 3 seconds behind his teammate. That was Mansour Oj there, Ron Dennis's partner in the management of the McLaren team. Montoya 1.7 seconds behind Barrichello. You can see the margins between the race leader and the rest. And a very handy opening stint indeed from Kimi Räikkönen. That's Jarno Trulli in 6th, where he started the Grand Prix as well. Renault seem to have stabilised a little bit on their tyres now. Trulli's pace pretty much the same as the Williams, McLaren and Ferrari in front of him. Yes,
the man who's struggling a bit is Alonso in 7th. He's in the 34s, everybody else in the 32s and 33s. And the 2 Renaults are going to have Coulthard cruising up behind them anytime soon. De Matter's 9th, 8 seconds behind Button. A very lonely 10th in terms of, he can't see 9th place man, but Mark Webber in the Jaguar right behind Jenson Button. There's a good scrap if we can pick that up on the TV screens. Your leader then, Kimi Räikkönen, now by exactly 8 seconds. Ted.
Well, Martin, you're talking about the Renaults. I've got to say, actually, they're looking pretty good in this. The lap time suggests that they are going to run longer than the Williams.
Ted, must interrupt you, sorry. Jacques Villeneuve's front wing has come undone. I wonder whether he's hit the chicane bollards that we were talking about before, because certainly a number of people have done that this weekend, and the man who was giving us the best fight of the Grand Prix has now knocked his front wing off, Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, we saw him spin off exactly here where he is now, so either the damage was done there, we did see pieces of carbon flicking up in the air. I think more likely he's given the bollard a whack at the chicane. So that somewhat concludes a miserable first part of the Grand Prix. He will stop, have a new nose, and read. There we go, look, yeah, it was the bollard on the right-hand side, driver error, and they'll change the nose, but that will leave him back at the tail end of the field again. At the moment, the two Jordans are 19th and 20th.
It's like some sort of fairy tale, this, isn't it? It's sort of some sort of terrible dream where you constantly going back and back and back to the back of the grid, no matter how hard you try. Here's the Renaults then getting ready for a pit stop. We were hearing from Ted, I interrupted him there when Villeneuve knocked his wing off, as Mark Webber comes into the pits from the Jaguar. Ted, briefly, what was the Renault story?
Well, the Renault story indeed was that they were going to pit soon, and here they go. Webber in, of course, BAR are out for Villeneuve, and Sauber are ready as well. But this is interesting from Renault. I think they're going to do this to try and get round Montoya. Remember, Alonso did set the fastest lap in Canada, so they're going to try and mirror something like they did there. It's going to be interesting, this one.
Frentzen in early too, so definitely three stops. They can stretch it here. They've got an opportunity to fuel heavy and make a longer middle stint. Here comes the chasing tail enders at the moment, and Frentzen just making it out in front of the Minardi.
Well, I think judging by the stationary time there, the Sauber certainly is on a three-stop strategy. The Jaguar seemed to be stationary for 10 seconds there, Mark Webber, and that would indicate, unless the stopwatch was wrong, that he put a bit more fuel into the car. Maybe he's stretching his strategy out to a two-stopper. That would be consistent with the way Jaguar have done Grand Prix this year. They have tended to run quite long, at least two of the stints of the race. And so here comes Jacques Villeneuve with damaged wing.
And truly in the pits, truly from P6 into the pits then.
Losing a track position to David Coulthard and Cristiano De Matta in the process. Jarno Trulli.
As ever, they'll have to manhandle Villeneuve's car up into the air. The Jack lifts the car on the front wing, can't do that. Front wing's broken. Truly stop is, that's not a lot of fuel in there. So if they're truly three stopping, James, I'd have thought that'd have been nearer seven, early sevens, but we don't know exactly who presses that stopwatch button and whether he knows the fuel's going in at that moment or not. And if he was going to try and do a long middle stint, he needed more fuel than that.
Yeah, he's going to do about 21 laps on the fuel load he's taken on board there. That'll take him to lap 37. So that's pretty much a two-stop strategy. Here comes Panis then. Having had that spin, lost track position, he's now, as you can see, he's behind Jenson Button. So Button is just gone out, he's made a stop himself, waiting for the computer to sort itself out, but Button was running in 10th place. Look at this though, McLaren getting ready. Now, which of the two drivers is this going to be? Kimi Räikkönen out front on lap 16, into the pit lane then for the race leader. He didn't have as much fuel on board as we thought.
That's surprising, isn't it? That surprised a lot of people in the paddock, certainly surprised me. And there's a Ferrari expected in soon too. So they've all fueled, they've all been edged into fueling quite short. Räikkönen had a 5.4 second lead. He'd had to coast in the pits for that. And in behind him then is Michael Schumacher. Away goes Räikkönen with a solid stop. Nothing spectacular.
No, nothing spectacular, but a solid two-stop strategy. Michael Schumacher's time almost identical. We talked about this being close, didn't we? They're on similar strategies, almost nothing to choose between them. But the lead of the race has now been handed to Ralf Schumacher on lap 17 of this Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Barrichello is second, and Montoya should be in third place, I believe, after the stops of previous race leader Räikkönen and Michael Schumacher. But as we said before, all the front runners expected in within 2 or 3 laps of each other.
Okay. See how it shakes out when they've all had their first scheduled stop. Michael Schumacher back out on the racetrack. Now this is where he beat his brother in Canada, because he was so quick, leaving the pits, getting straight on with it. Ralph had elected for used tyres, didn't have that maximum grip of a new set of tyres on the first lap, claimed he had a bit of traffic, whatever, but these are the crucial laps of the Grand Prix if you want to leapfrog and use the refueling as an opportunity to improve your track position.
But on that occasion, it was the Williams that pitted first, wasn't it? Michael had the extra lap of fuel. This time it's the other way round. Ralf Schumacher's got at least 1 more, perhaps even 2 more laps of fuel in his car as Rubens Barrichello comes into the pits. So Michael Schumacher's attempt to jump ahead of his brother is really under quite considerable pressure. It's up to Ralph now to push very hard. His last lap of 1:33.3 is very much on the pace. Montoya is second as Barrichello, who was third, comes into the pits.
Williams 1-2 then. Be interesting to see how far they could go. Bernie Ecclestone's tip for the win this afternoon. And if they stay out for another 3 or 4 laps, that might be rather smart.
Well, we saw Michael Schumacher looking over the shoulder of the FIA guys, weighing Kimi Räikkönen's car after qualifying yesterday. So he knew that information. And you can see there Michael Schumacher sailing past his teammate. Obviously Bernie's privy to it too. He knew how much fuel was in the cars. Perhaps he's privy to it, I don't know, but maybe he knew something that the other competitors didn't, namely how much fuel is in the 2 Williams of Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya. They're lapping in the low 1:33s at the moment in this Grand Prix. Alonso on the same sort of pace in 4th place. Coulthard hasn't made a stop yet. He's also lapping at the same kind of pace at the moment. Kimi Räikkönen has rejoined in 6th place after his stop. Michael Schumacher has rejoined in 7th, still 8 seconds behind Kimi Räikkönen.
Looking lonely out there for Ralf Schumacher at the moment. He's got a 6.3 second advantage over Montoya, who's not really had a great pace so far in the Grand Prix. He's held station. He's been there or thereabouts, but nothing like the sort of stunning pace we saw from him, and he pits, so Williams are not going that much further. You can assume Ralph will be in quite soon too. We've got to expect Coulthard in the pits. Normally the McLarens run with a pretty similar fuel level too, but Montoya not shown that stunning pace he had 2 weeks ago in Montreal. Nonetheless, he's still in the hunt for the afternoon. Alonso pits, Coulthard pits too, so currently 2nd, 3rd and 4th place men into the pit. There's the Renault of Alonso, a little front wing change. We saw that his pace wasn't as good as it may have been, and we haven't got a clock on Coulthard. Montoya's away, so is the Renault of Alonso, so they're pretty much leaving the pit absolutely as they arrived, in the same order, and a slightly tardy stop for Coulthard. Maybe they got a bit more fuel into that car, and look, he doesn't quite clear truly either, so Coulthard will be pleased to see the back of the front runners in terms of he's now coming into the hunt, but he'll be disappointed that didn't clear the Renault.
No, he will be disappointed with that. So Ron Dennis's prediction that nobody out there would be running more conservative than us, very much wrong. Kimi Räikkönen has made his stop. He was the first of the big guns to do so. He was not carrying more fuel than the rest of them. The man who's been carrying the fuel is Ralf Schumacher, and that makes his qualifying effort all the more creditable. 3rd place yesterday, just less than 1/10 of a second slower than Räikkönen, considering how much more fuel he was carrying, and considering how much more fuel he was carrying than teammate Montoya. That was a stunning effort from Ralf Schumacher yesterday, and once again the man who was on pole for the 2 previous Grand Prix, hitting a bit of form now. He's certainly hit plenty of criticism, hasn't he, for not attempting to pass Michael Schumacher in Canada, for not being quick enough in Montreal around the time of the pit stops, losing the lead to his brother. People say he's not hungry, that he lacks desire, but he's showing today he's very hungry.
Yes, that must be a McLaren with that sponsor on the front. Michelin tyres going on, black overalls, clearly Coulthard's pit stop, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. And Ralph still didn't pit at the end of the previous lap, as you can clearly see. He's still on his way, that he's on lap 20. Räikkönen 21.3 seconds behind him. That's not enough to take the lead, is it? And nor should it be, really, because Räikkönen had about 8 seconds in his pocket. But Ralph lapping late 33s, and so is everybody else. So he's not, with low fuel at the moment, much lower fuel than the others. For some reason, he's not really taking the advantage he needs now, James.
No, he's not. He's only 21.3 seconds faster, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen on the racetrack. His stop must be imminent, and to come into the pits and rejoin ahead of the guy who was behind you safely here on a 2-stop strategy, you need something like about 25 seconds. So he's going to be closer than he was before the stops, but he's still going to rejoin behind Kimi Räikkönen when it all shakes out. Räikkönen up to 2nd now.
Yes, interestingly, Michael Schumacher's 27 seconds behind Ralph, so Ralph should pop back into 2nd place if he has a fault-free stop. So there's not going to be any key changes on... not going to be any key changes. Alonso's got ahead of Trulli, though, in their stop. So somewhere or another, Trulli had a problem, and that's moved Alonso number 8 up to P6. Coulthard just behind the pair of them.
How many times have we seen that this season? It's just something about the races. And Alonso just seems to push harder throughout the course of a stint, across the course of a Grand Prix than Jarno Trulli, who is often quicker on the single lap, but just perhaps can't keep the pace up to the same extent that Alonso can.
Seems to be the way, doesn't it? Seems to be the way. Did Ralf Schumacher pit? No, he did not pit. He's going into another lap, so he certainly is the man with the longest legs for the first stint this afternoon. There is his board, plus 21.7 seconds. He was 4/10 quicker than Räikkönen that time around, and now they're getting ready for him at the end of his lap 21. There's the race leader.
And that will mean he's carried 4 laps more fuel than Räikkönen did. And that really is a very good effort from Ralf Schumacher. You need about 3 kilos of fuel per lap, just under. So he was 12 kilos heavier than the McLaren on the start grid. And if you consider he was less than a tenth slower than him, that really does show you what a lap it was from Ralf yesterday.
Yeah, 12 kilos, did you say? What was that, about 4 and a bit tenths of penalty? So Ralf looking good then. Barrichello scything his way through the back. Marcus Heidfeld, who started from the pit lane, was running 10th, has now pitted, so he's on a normal 2-stopper. Don't think there's a lot of point in carrying too much fuel around here. The penalty's too high. Ted?
Yes, I was watching David Coulthard's lap time just before Ralf stopped. It was 9 seconds worth of fuel time, so he'll be able to run longer than Alonso and Montoya. 8.5 seconds, the target about for Ralf's stop here. They're making a small adjustment to the front wing. New Michelin's on. There's no problem with the fuel. He's off. That's a good stop from Williams. 7 seconds, 7.7.
Yep, second Grand Prix in succession that the Williams stop has been very, very sharp indeed. He's racing against his brother here. There's the race leader, the new race leader, Kimi Räikkönen. There's Michael Schumacher in the background, and so Ralf Schumacher comfortably back out in front of his brother, and if anything, he's increased the margin by perhaps half to 3/4 of a second over the course of that stint. So Ralf really, this Grand Prix, making it count his strategy. Nastily balked there, though, it looked like, by Minardi. He is being balked.
Yeah, Wilson not really ready to yield, but he's rally crossing around the outside, and Ralf says, yeah, good luck to you, you're better off out there because I need to get on. He knows how crucial these outlaps are, and it has lost him a second or two already, and it's so tight in Grand Prix this season. It's those sort of moments that can make a difference at the end of the final lap. Justin Wilson there getting well sideways, and Ralf, hey, what are you doing? To be fair to Justin, Ralf came out of the pit lane, probably out of view. Justin's in the middle of his own hard race with Verstappen and Fisichella and co, and he was just minding his own business. I'm sure he would have yielded down the next straight. As it happens, he didn't have to because Justin made a bit of a mistake. Yeah,
Villeneuve, we were looking at him before, lost his nose, as we know. He's still in last place and 14 seconds off the back of that Minardi battle. So here's the race leader once again after the first round of stops. Kimi Räikkönen coming through to complete lap 22. Ralf Schumacher is second. Michael Schumacher is third. Barrichello is fourth. Fifth is Montoya, and sixth at the moment, Fernando Alonso. 24 at the Nürburgring, you're looking at David Coulthard in 8th place. Nothing's changed, you've missed nothing. And he is closing down on the back of Jarno Trulli, who is, well, the last lap he was fractionally quicker than David Coulthard, but certainly on this lap, Coulthard has closed him down. There's Jenson Button. He is down in 10th place at the moment. Olivier Panis is 11th and right on the back of the Englishman. Panis was 7th in the Toyota, which is where he started the race on the grid, but he had a spin and dropped down to 11th, which a painful mistake for him. On board then with Olivier Panis, chasing down Button.
Fastest man on the track still Kimi Räikkönen, but Ralf Schumacher's pegging him. The gap still 4.3 seconds. Right, the quick pit stop of Williams and the ins and outs of Ralf Schumacher, he halved the deficit and now has the young Finn certainly clearly in his sights. He'll be on the same straight most of the time, and it's race on. I think Michael Schumacher just beginning to slip back slightly from them. He's 9 seconds off the lead in 3rd place. Barrichello 5 seconds further behind him. Alonso, Trulli and Coulthard in very close company, lapping in the 1:34s. Here's the race leader. What are we going to see here as a replay? And that's just about perfect how you want to hit those bollards. Let's hope he didn't collect the next one with the wing. He didn't collect it at all, hardly. So you can bash it with the tyre, don't touch it with the nose. And remember, of course, behind the wheel, you can't see the nose. You haven't really got a clue. It's like driving an E-Type Jag. You don't really quite know where the front of the car finishes.
Mr. Huppert there on the wall, the top man at Mercedes-Benz. Cristiano De Mata coming in for his 2nd stop of the afternoon. So I don't know if this is scheduled or whether he's not happy with the balance of his 2nd set of tyres. Bit of work going on there. Front right-hand corner, I should say. Nose change for Cristiano De Mata. Maybe he has tagged one of those bollards. Slick work though by the Toyota boys. Putting the new nose on, fuel and tyres in under 15 seconds. Don't cross that white line, Cristiano. No, he doesn't.
Looks like the nose is held on with Lego bricks or with Velcro or something. I've never seen. There was a tremendous nose change on that car. They've got a great system on that for a change of nose, and the front wing, of course, connected to that. And it's quite complex, that piece of carbon fibre and honeycomb, because that's where the crash test zone is, and a clever piece of kit, and it weighs virtually nothing. But usually, because it's so pivotal with the crash testing program, they have to be really bolted on. That's a great system they got on that Toyota.
Not to mention the amount of air, the downforce being generated by that front wing. It's a big, big load as the air passes down over it and pushes it down onto the track. Well, we found out this weekend how much one of those things is costs, because a number of the boys have knocked them off. As I said, Jenson Button knocked 3 off on Friday, and we found out that it's £20,000 each, and Räikkönen has blown up. I don't believe it. Out front, looking for his 2nd Grand Prix of the season, and the left bank of Mercedes-Benz V10 cylinders has gone, and Kimi Räikkönen is out of the Grand Prix. What a terrible, terrible luck for him.
He'll be about as popular as a toothache if he keeps driving it on the line like that. He's losing fluid out of the left-hand side pod. Räikkönen clearly out of the race, not going to make it back to the pits, and what a shame. 4.8 seconds was his lead. Ralf certainly had him covered, but didn't have the ability to catch him, and Kimi Räikkönen, not a happy bunny, gets out of the car. And I know what it's like. You're sweaty, you're disappointed, and the marshals touch it. Even if they just touch you, you just feel you want to push everybody away from you. You don't want anybody in your personal space at that time. You just are so unhappy when your car fails like that.
Mario Ilian there, the engine builder from Mercedes. And here's a replay of what we all know is the inevitable big trail of telltale white smoke. And Kimi Räikkönen's Grand Prix is at an end. Talking about people jostling off marshals, remember James Hunt actually punched one. Do you remember escorting him away from his car? James turned around and walloped him one, and Räikkönen dejected. The gloves go down, and that is a very, very bad afternoon for Kimi Räikkönen and for Mario Ilian. Certainly one of the theories behind maintaining this interim McLaren is the reliability. You can't afford not to finish Grand Prix with a new point system, and today Räikkönen will take no points away from this race. At the moment, his chief championship rival, Michael Schumacher, is on for 8 points. That will extend his lead over Räikkönen to 11 in the World Championship. And the face says it all. Ted.
Yes, James, it was all very sudden. As watching the Mercedes engine stand with, as you say, Professor Hubert and Norbert Haug from Mercedes on their hands raised in the air. Very little advance notice of that. A real shame, because Räikkönen was hoping to close that gap of 3 points on Michael Schumacher. I think Michael Schumacher's still going to go ahead at the end of this race with the lead of the championship.